In this time of the pandemic, we are reminded of the importance of resilience, the ability to overcome whatever challenges come our way. No one embodies that trait more than Jessica Cox. She was born without arms as a result of a rare birth defect, but that has not stopped her from achieving big things in her life, more than most people do in their lifetime. Jessica is the world's first licensed armless pilot, and she has invited us to her home state of Arizona so we can get to know her and her very special project. Well, thank you so much, Jessica, for inviting us here today. Not only you can fly a plane, but I heard that you also can drive a car, play piano, type fast. So many things that most people would say is impossible when someone has a birth defect. How are you able to do that? Can you share with us on that?
You know, it's so funny because when I think about it, this is my normal. Doing things the way I do them is very normal, but for the average person, they think of it as being impossible because most people in the world rely on their arms and their hands to be fully independent, to do the things, the everyday things, to function in the world. But because I was born without, from the beginning, I had to learn how to deal without. And my body adapted to that. And so I slowly learned to do things like children learn to feed themselves. They learn how to do things with their hands, but I learned to do them with my feet. So it's a whole lifetime dedicated to living without arms and learning how to adapt to using my feet to do the things that some people may think is impossible.
So before I arrived this afternoon, I shared with my 12 years old daughter, Bella, that I'm actually going to be meeting you. And my daughter, Bella, she is in leadership development classes right now. She's taking those classes. So I text her last night. I said, Bella, I'm meeting Jessica Cox. And I actually sent in one of your video that you did at the TED Talk show.
Yes.
Right? And I sent it to her and she watched it. She said, wow, it's pretty amazing. And I said, if there's any question you want to ask Jessica, what would the question you want to ask her? And today, literally before the interview, she texted me back. And so I'm going to start off my daughter Bella's two questions. And the first question she had for you was, when did you become independent? When did you learn to become independent? And second question is, she wanted you to kind of share with her, how do you use cell phone? I mean, you know how kids, they're so much into cell phone. How do you actually do it?
Mm-hmm. Should I take the first or the second one?
It's totally up to you.
Maybe I'll start with the first question.
Okay.
And tell Bella thank you for her curiosity and her questions. The first one is, I started to learn to be independent probably about 11 or 12.
Okay.
I understand she's like 12, right? You said.
Yep, she just turned 12.
So right about that age, I needed to start becoming more independent and do things for myself. But I've been learning to do things with my feet ever since I was like 2 or 3. But as far as being fully independent, meaning taking care of all my needs, where I can go and travel somewhere by myself, it wasn't until I was 11 or 12 years old, and that I kind of started to figure out I need to learn how to get dressed on my own, and I need to learn how to do all these things that everyone else can do at my age by myself. And that was about 11 years old when I started to really start to push myself to figure it out, to see how people are figuring this out when they have a disability or figuring out when they don't have arms. And I was looking out in the world to see if there were people who had different systems. And I talked to therapists, and
right.
I talked to some people who had also been born without arms. And I was just trying to find out what is going to work for me. And it was just about not giving up and working at a goal of becoming independent. And that is a great feeling.
Now, I also understand that you chose not to use prosthetic arms.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about it?
I wore prosthetics from the age of 3 to the age of 14. So I decided I didn't want them because for 11 years wearing them, they felt heavy. It was really hot. It was like wearing, football equipment on all day. I was sweating and very uncomfortable, and I could do everything better with my feet because there's nothing like flesh and bone. So I decided to leave the prosthetics behind because they weren't doing me any good. I think prosthetics are wonderful for people who've lost limbs.
Right.
But because I was born this way, it's a completely different story.
So let's talk a little bit about your mindset before we demonstrate how you use your phone. I didn't forget about that question, okay?
Yeah, because Bella wants to know.
Exactly. I wanted to know, you have such, I call it, unbelievable mindset. That's the word I'm trying to say, because people say strong mindset. I can't use the word strong because you're more than strong. Unbelievable mindset. Do you think that's born with, or do you think that was taught by your parents?
Ooh, that is a question of psychology,
Yeah.
whether environment makes us who we are,
Yeah.
or are we biologically, are we born to be the people that
Yeah.
we become because of our genetics or whatever? And I think a combination, because my mom is a fighter, and she lived that through her life of struggling through cancer, struggling to come to the United States when she immigrated here from the Philippines when she was only 22. She had to build a life for herself without anyone, around. So she was a fighter from the moment she was born, because she was born in a time when, like, World War II,
Right.
there was a lot of struggle. And anyway, she was an example of being a fighter. And she really ingrained that in me by teaching me that, but also about who she is. And then environmentally, because I was born without arms, I had to persevere more. Because it took me longer to learn how to get dressed on my own. For me, it took me probably, 10 years to finally figure out how to do it all on my own, versus a child who maybe learns when they're 5 or 6 how to put their clothes on by themselves. And so that whole process builds that grit and that determination, because you need that to survive. And, like they say, the organism has to adapt or die. And I think that, and there's another wonderful quote I love, the body can do just about anything. It's the mind that takes convincing.
Right.
Which is why I love you talk about mindset, because sometimes it's our minds that hold us back. And having that mindset to overcome the challenges, it was ingrained in me from the start, but also because of my environment and having a foundation of wonderful parents who I feel so lucky and blessed to have had the parents that I have had, because they really taught me to be who I am.
Now, before I ask you the next question, let's do the demonstration right now, shall we?
Sure, yeah,
right.
for Bella.
For Bella, can you record that for Bella? All right.
This is for Bella.
This is for
This is how
Bella's for you.
This is how I text. I'm using my toes. First, I use my toe print to unlock my phone. So people always ask me, does it really recognize your toe print like a fingerprint?
Wow.
Yes, the iPhone does. And I'm going to how about I send Bella a text right now?
Oh my God.
How about that? She'll see.
Oh my God. Are you serious? I would. Okay, I'm gonna give you, dude. I'm gonna give you my daughter's phone number right now and say you are Jessica Cox.
Bella, this is me with my toes. How's that?
That's pretty amazing.
This is Jessica with her toes.
Jeez, this is unbelievable.
There we go.
Oh, my daughter is gonna love you.
I'm going to text her, never give up.
Oh, Jesus, this is amazing.
Never give up on your dreams. There we go. That's even better. That's to Bella right there.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing that for Bella.
Yeah.
You made her day. Let's go back to let's talk a little bit about why people fail, right? Because it took you just 10 years to master how to put clothes on yourself. But there are a lot of people I work with, a lot of people I mentor. When they see the first challenge or maybe the second obstacle, they give up very quickly. Why do you think that is?
Ooh, I can tell you've been thinking about that one. What sets people apart?
Yes.
And how can we help people to not give up?
Yes.
I think a lot of times it goes back to the self-talk. And a lot of people have these self-limiting beliefs, unfortunately. And whether that's environmental,
Right.
or, what causes that, maybe something traumatic happens. We have a lot of trauma, no matter who you are. Trauma happens in our life and it causes a reaction. And some people react positively, some people not always positively, some people become stronger from it. So everyone is different. So I don't know if I have an answer for the overall question of why people give up or fail or are afraid to try. But all I can say is that sometimes it's that self-talk that makes a huge impact.
Got you. Now let's go back to your childhood. Being born without arms, what was it like growing up? And how did your peers treat you? Did you experiencing some kind of bullying and etc.?
Yes, and that's why it is so important to be doing what we're doing today to inspire more kids. And that's what my foundation is all about, is really overcoming the bullying and overcoming the negative self-talk that the bullying causes on children who are born with disabilities or born without limbs. For me, it was relentless. Every single time, everywhere I'd go, you can't do that, you don't have arms. Right. How can you do this? And it made me so angry. Some people react by being sad or depressed. Right. But for me, I reacted with anger. And
you're driven by naysayers. You're driven by haters.
Yes.
You're very similar to me.
Yeah.
And yes, on one of my convention talk, and I share with my entire sales organization, and I let people know, do you know what drove me for the last 2.5 decades? A lot of people think, oh, it's the material things. A lot of people think it's a lifestyle. A lot of people think, oh, because maybe we're doing this because we love our family, we love our dad, we love our mom, we love our kids. Don't get me wrong. When we do something, it's always for our family first. But how come so many people, when they have or encounter some challenges, all of a sudden they quit, they stop? What happened to your kids now? What happened to you want to retire your parents earlier? What happened to those dreams? Well, the way I share with my guys is that I'm driven by criticism. I'm driven by haters. I'm driven by naysayers, because many times I recorded all the stuff that they said to me for the last 2.5 decades, and I replay to my mind almost every single night. But I think the ultimate drive is to prove somebody wrong.
Oh yeah.
And that seems to be like you.
Oh, we have that in common.
Yep. But then, of course, once you got to the ultimate level, you prove everybody wrong. Then it's about legacy. It's no longer about proving them wrong or right. We graduated. You and I graduated. But when I started, it was all about proving people wrong. Yeah. And we need to go through that process. And hopefully we'll get to level one day and also calm ourselves down and say, you know what? Let's not focus on the haters anymore. Yeah. Because you're always going to have some of them. You're going to always have people criticize you, whatever you're doing. Let's focus on legacy. Let's focus on impact. Let's focus on a bigger purpose.
Yes.
Right? So Jessica, let's talk about making history. You are the world's first armless black belt in the American Taekwondo Association. And you are also the world's first licensed armless pilot. How did you train to do both of this very difficult task?
It started when I was young. As far as the Taekwondo part, I started Taekwondo when I was 10. And I just remember the instructor said, my mom went in to talk to the instructor when she first brought me in. And she said, can my daughter learn Taekwondo? And he said, well, I have only one condition. As long as she has a good attitude. And so she knew it was going to be something that I would be happy with. And I started with my brother and my sister, and they decided they didn't want to continue on because it wasn't their thing, but I stuck with it. Yeah. And I worked hard through my first 4 years, and then by the time I was in college, I joined a new style, and it's called American Taekwondo Association, and I became the first black belt without arms in the American Taekwondo Association.
Unbelievable. Let's talk about how long did it take you to become a black belt from I guess it's from the entry level white belt. They call it.
Start from white belt
all the way to black belt.
Yellow,
how long did it take you?
Green, blue, red, and black. The first black belt I earned, it took 4 years. And then now I'm a 4th degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Ooh, nobody's gonna mess with you.
That takes a lot of years, because in between the degrees, it takes a certain amount of years to get to test. And it's been wonderful. It's been the way that I met my husband.
Yeah, I heard about that.
It's developed my confidence to know that I can keep my head up high and know self-defense, and my fitness. Because flexibility for me is critical.
Yeah.
So the Taekwondo really keeps me flexible. It keeps me fit. And that's what I have to do, even now as an adult, 2 to 3 times a week.
Okay. Let's talk about flying an airplane. That's a totally different ball game.
Yes, it is a completely different ball game.
Yeah.
Nothing like flying.
Yeah.
I don't even think I can compare it to anything.
But what motivated you, and all of a sudden you want to be a pilot? It got to be some kind of trigger.
Well, you touched on it earlier.
Yeah.
When you were saying what motivates you,
Right.
I was like, I'm in the same boat.
Gotcha.
Because that whole thing of being told, maybe for me personally, being told my whole life you can't.
Yeah.
And, wanting to tell the world, I can do it. What better way than to conquer not only my greatest fear, because it was my greatest fear to lose contact with the ground, but to show the world something that's never been done before. To do something that many people thought was impossible, to get a Guinness World Record medal doing it, and showing the world, if I can fly a plane, that there's isn't anything that anyone else, cannot do. They can inspire to do great things. And so it worked, aligned with my message and my profession as a speaker, to be able to not only speak from the stage and tell people, be courageous, be persistent, do things that are difficult, but to be able to live it out in my life and become the first armless pilot. It was something that had to be done together to be able to have that permission to be on stage to tell people to overcome their own impossibles.
I am so glad you said that. There's a difference between a thought leader and a show leader. A lot of people are thought leaders. They talk about things. They speak loud on stage. They're a great speaker. But then behind the door, they don't really do what they preach. I think what makes you absolutely so unique is because you live your life with a lot of ups and a lot of downs, encounter a lot of challenges, and at the end of the day, you overcame a lot of challenges, and you were able to tell that story through practicality. And to me, what makes an amazing world speaker is not the words they use necessary. It is the life stories, the examples they accumulated over the years, and now they're able to become a great messenger and deliver those messages to other people who's less inspired, maybe going through tough time, going through darkest moments in life. So I love what you said about that. Let's talk about 2015. 2015 is a special year. You published a self-help book called Disarm Your Limits. And also the same year, you had a documentary called Right-Footed, also launched. What can people learn from reading that book, Disarm Your Limits, and also watching your documentary?
We'll start with Disarm Your Limits. I wanted to write that book as a self-help because I can tell my story, but it needs to be about the reader. And that's what that focus was from the beginning, is that this is about the reader and about them accomplishing goals in their own life and about using persistence and thinking about an example in their life where maybe they had to persist or had to have the courage to do something. So it's very much a reflective book that challenges them to think about the examples in their own life and pushes them to strive to become better at whatever they're set out to do. And then the documentary Right-Footed it was definitely an incredible journey, 5 years from start to finish of a documentary that followed the director, Nick Spark, followed us through my husband and I getting married. The director followed us all the way to the Philippines to learn about my family, and followed us all the way to the Philippines after the typhoon, the strongest typhoon in history.
Yeah.
We went over there to inspire and bring hope, and also followed us to different places in Africa, in Ethiopia, and put together this whole documentary to share the message that you don't need arms to lift people up. And it was such a touching piece, and I was so happy when the director showed us what he put together to share with the world the story, not only my story, but the story of others, and how we can work together to show that disability doesn't mean inability.
Love that. Disability doesn't mean inability. Powerful statement. Let's talk about your foundation, Right-Footed Foundation, very unique name. And your special project that you're doing right now involves a special plane for people with disabilities. Tell us about your foundation. and the special project you're doing.
I am so glad that you were here today to kind of get an idea of what the foundation is about.
Yeah.
The foundation is the newest thing that I started, and it's been around for now 5 years. And it's about giving back. It's about empowering people with disabilities with a focus on children, because I love children. And this foundation has put a lot of focus this last year on the aviation aspect. And that is inspiring through aviation, using aviation and airplanes as a vehicle to inspire children to believe that disability doesn't mean inability. And right now we have launched this summer an incredible project. It's called the Impossible Airplane. Ooh. We're going to build the first ever foot-controlled airplane in aviation history, so that it can be flown with feet on the left pilot and command seat. The right seat will remain the same, so any other pilot can fly it.
Wow.
But the left seat can be flown solo. The plane can be flown solo with just foot control.
That's absolutely amazing. So you have a company that is willing to do that, willing to build that plane?
Well, that's the thing. The controls are going to have to be modified, and it's never been done before. So we are going to have to use the help of engineers to engineer a completely new control scheme for flying the airplane. But the kit for the plane itself, it is going to be from a manufacturer that does kit airplanes.
Wow, that's exciting.
Very exciting. It's going to be incredible.
So what is your message for kids, especially those with disabilities?
Well, I want them to see that the sky is not the limit. And we are constantly told, and I say we because so much of my childhood was spent listening to all the people, as you touched on before, naysayers, people who say you can't do it, you don't have what it takes, or whether it's you don't have what it takes as far as strength, or you don't have what it takes as far as limbs, whatever it is that you're told you can't do it. I know that that's the reality for so many children born with a disability. And today is an example of, a few kids who were born with some limb difference, but they were probably told on the playground or somewhere you can't, and we don't want that to manifest. We want to inspire them with other images of what's possible. And that's why for them to come out today to see the airplane, to sit in the airplane, and to see a woman without arms know that she flew this plane, I think that that's going to make a positive impact on the rest of their life. And that's what I hope. And that's what we hope to continue to do, is continuing to put that positive influence in the lives of so many children who are being told so many negative things on a daily basis. But to be that positive example of what's possible and break through those limitations that are set out for so many.
What is your message to the rest of the world in terms of how they view and treat those with disabilities?
I want to tell the rest of the world that disability doesn't mean inability, and that anyone, no matter what their circumstances, whether they're born with a disability, they can accomplish great things. And who's to say what someone can accomplish unless they're given the chance themselves to attempt it, to try? We should allow them to try before saying that they can't. And that's what the world needs to hear, is that people can do some incredible things if they're given the opportunity, if they're given the support.
So I also watch your TED Talk. You are an amazing speaker. I have been a speaker for over 2 decades, and I learn from different speakers, but you are the A-list speakers, very few that belong to the A-list, where the way you articulate, the way you put stories together, and the way you deliver the message to the audience, I think is very, very attractive. You're like a magnet. When people listen to you, they pay attention, total attention to what you're saying. You travel around the country, if I'm not mistaken, you said 25, 26, 27 countries already, and around the world as a motivational speaker. But I think you're a lot more than a motivational speaker, by the way. What valuable lessons do you usually tell people when you're speaking in front of all these people?
I tell people the story. I open up with a story about how I had to shift my mindset from the beginning. And I have this saying, think outside the shoe. And so what I want to do by the end of that hour speech, or half an hour, I want them to be able to shift the way they see a challenge. And so I tell them by telling them the story of how I learned how to think outside the shoe and how I applied that to overcoming the first obstacle in flying, and the principles that allowed me to get to that impossible dream that many people thought was not achievable, to fly a plane without arms, and how to overcome that challenge of not only self-doubt and the doubt from others, but how to overcome the emotional factors like the lack of courage or the fears that we all have, how to overcome that, the thought of I'm going to give up, or how to persevere through that. And so I shared with them those different principles in a hope to light a flame in their own lives for what is it that they want to accomplish, what's their own impossible, and how they can achieve their own impossible.
So what is next for Jessica Cox? You've done all the impossibles in most people's eye. What is next for you?
Next, I'm going to work hard on this airplane. We launched it this summer. We hope to get this airplane off the ground to continue to inspire more people. It's a very big engineering feat to build a plane that is designed to be flown with feet, so it's never been done before. It's going to take a lot of work, and I hope to continue to get the message out there, so I will continue to speak all over the world and show the world that everything's possible. So.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica, for giving me an opportunity to talk to you today. We are so proud of you. You have been an inspiration to millions of people in the world, believe it or not, and certainly for me. I met a lot of people. I work with a lot of people. I mentor a lot of people. But I can tell you, before I met you today, and I was really looking forward to this interview because I study you and I Google you. And it's like a little kid. You get excited to meet that person. It doesn't really happen for me very often because I met so many people and worked with so many people over the years. You're an inspiration to me, particularly, and I want to thank you for the opportunity. That's why Just Wish Foundation and I, as the founder, we're going to make a donation to Right-Footed Foundation International and helping you on this special project. But I want you to know this will not be the last time that we'll be talking. We'll be connecting with each other very often because I feel the connection with you today. I really do.
I feel connected. Yeah.
This is not just an interview with me. This is really something that I treasure, I value a lot, and I appreciate you so much. And keep doing amazing work and what you're doing for the community, especially the kids, especially disabled kids. You're giving them a lot of hope. So again, one more time, thank you so much, and I appreciate you.